Hey everybody, this is Sterling. I'm going to do a quick screencast on how to make an Ember application with Firebase and do it from scratch. So let's get started. First off, if you pull up my website, sterlingcobb.com, I have a link here in medium.com where I'll be posting this, this actual blog article. How to build real-time chatting app with Firebase and EmberJS from scratch after this video is done. This came about because I gave a presentation at the Ember.js and I thought I'd just make a little screencast about how it works. Basically, to build a real-time chatting application, you can really easily do it with Firebase. Firebase is a real-time data store, and the way it works is really simple. So if you go to firebase.com, you log in and you can see that I have a whole bunch of different apps, but Mr. Chat is what we're going to be building today. And what we do is we throw data at it, kind of like throwing JSON at it. So you can see that there's a list of messages and you have a key associated with it, this randomized key that it generates, and you also have the different attributes that you can add to it. Now, Firebase works with what's called a reference. A reference is a point at which your data is located. For instance, if I were referencing the messages, I would be right here. So I can just type into the URL /messages, and it'll actually only show me the data associated with messages. But if I went to the root, of course, I would see the root of the data, and etc. And now Firebase provides a whole bunch of things where you can add event listeners for data to say when data changed, or you can do things like move up a child, down a child, or sorry, up to a parent, down to children, and whatever to navigate your different data structures. Okay, so now we're done talking about that. The way we're going to build this application is with an array proxy. Array proxies are a way of creating your own Ember type array. That being said, we're going to be doing this in probably not the best way, but it's good because it's completely from scratch. So we're not using Emberfire or anything like that. We're just doing this from scratch, pure EmberJS with Firebase. Okay, so the first thing to do is I created a little repo with the styles all set, so you guys don't have to worry about that. Go ahead and download it. It's an Ember app kit, so we're going to be using Grunt. If you go to my repository here, you can just clone this thing. And I'm going to go ahead on my desktop and get clone until I did this before. We're going to go ahead and clone it, and then we're going to move into the app kit, and then we'll npm install. So this is going to install the dependencies. One of the dependencies you should be aware of if you can't get this thing working is the Grunt CLI. So you need to install this, I believe, globally in order to get Grunt working so that you can do Grunt server. And this is what Ember AppKit uses currently. So I've already done this, so I'm not going to do this, but if you can't get it working, make sure you have the Grunt CLI installed, and then you can use Grunt to get everything going. So as you can see, it installs all the Node package managers, and then it goes through and it's going to install all the Bower stuff because it also uses Bower to manage dependencies. One of those Bower items that we're installing, as you can see a little bit up here, is way up here, is Firebase. So we've included the Firebase JavaScript library, and that allows us to tie into Firebase and do some cool stuff. So let's type in Grunt server, and this is going to open up a server on localhost port 8000, and we can just open that up over here. All right, so localhost port 8000, and voila, this is what we got. So all the styles are all done for you, and we have placeholders for where we would type our message in and our username, and we can just go from there. Okay, so let's open up our project. So I use Vim, and you feel free to use whatever you want. All right. So the first thing I want to do is start with the router, because in most cases you're gonna want to start with the router in Ember. It's where things kind of start. So it's in app routers, and we're just going to use the index router. Well, in this router, what we need to do is return a model. So this is very just basic Ember.js. But we're going to return a model, and the code will go here. Okay, next the model that we're going to return, though, it needs to be a custom array of objects that we've built up. You see, Ember actually wraps their arrays in their own arrays. So there's like Ember array that it knows how to deal with. Well, if you're doing anything fancy like we are, we need to make a custom one, because our array needs to know what the reference, remember that reference to Firebase, it needs to know where that reference is, and it needs to know how to update itself, because we're doing stuff in real time. So when things change, we need to be able to update this Ember array so that it automatically updates the template. So okay, so now what we want to do is create that array proxy. So if you do a quick Google search for array proxies, array proxy or Ember, yeah, that one works. You'll see this documentation on it. The basic thing to get out of here is you need to set the content of the array proxy, and that is where all your data lies. And then you can also add properties on top of this thing. Okay, so let's go do that. We're going to add that. We're actually going to create a folder called lib. Inside of lib, we're going to add messages.js. Now, messages.js, this is going to be our array proxy. Keep in mind the syntax, export default. This syntax is just ECMAScript 6 type modules. So it's just saying that this is going to be the default module that we're exporting for this file, because potentially you could have multiple. So this is just the default one. Okay, so we're going to do Ember array proxy dot extend, and we're going to go ahead and extend this array proxy. So in my blog article here, I have a Firebase account here, and then I mentioned creating this. So for just ease of time, I'm actually just going to copy and paste all this, but explain everything and what's going on here. So go ahead and feel free to copy and paste this, or you can type it out yourself. But what's going on here is I'm exporting the default module, like I said before. We're going to extend the array proxy, and this is going to give us a new array that extends this array proxy. We are going to keep track of the ref, which is the reference point. Right now it's null, but we want to be able to add anything to this, right? Then what we're going to do is create this function called load content. Now what load content is doing is it's saying, okay, right here it's going to observe the refs property, or the ref property, and if ref changes, if anything changes on that, it's going to actually run the load content. And what this does is pretty simple. It uses the onValue a handler that Firebase provides for us. So let's go take a look at that really quick. Firebase gives us a few options to hold on to. So if you go to the JavaScript API reference, you can see the on event has a few different things. One of those is value. What value means is every time something changes on this reference, so whenever any messages change on our Firebase server, it's going to actually execute this code. Also, as a as a first step, it will load the initial data stored at the location. So it'll run the code once with a data snapshot, and then it'll run it whenever things change. Okay, so what we're going to do is do just that. We have the reference because we will potentially add it later here. We then say on value, give us the snapshot, which is the stuff in there, and then what's this stuff? Well, this is just underscore, obviously here, mapping the data to look the way we want it to look. Now, why we're doing this is because if you look at what the data actually looks like over here. You'll notice that when we push something up to the server, it generates this key, but this key is outside of the actual object. What we really want is an ID attribute on here with this key being the value of the ID. And so we need to morph that, and we do that with a map, because a map will return an array of the messages here. And so we do a snapshot.value, which returns the value at that snapshot, and then we assign the ID to be equal to key. Pretty simple stuff. Next, we're going to set the content. So this is where we set the Ember array proxy, and this is where all that data gets loaded. So there we go, and there we go. Okay, get this formatted nicely. Awesome. So when we observe refs, it's going to first, or it's going to add this event handler basically. Cool. Okay. Last part is this push method. So we have a way of reading data from the server, but we need a way of pushing data to the server, and that's actually super simple. We just create this little message called push message, and then we grab the reference and we push the data to there, and that will automatically create this key for us. We don't have to worry about that. So Firebase is cool in that it does some really neat things for you. So you push to that, and then you're done. Okay, so let's go implement this array proxy that we've just built. We can do that by going back to our route here, and we're gonna implement that. And once again, for time's sake, I'm just gonna copy and paste this. I explain all of this in detail, what's going on as well. But all right, so back to our router. Here we go. All right, so first thing we will need to do is, you remember when we made that array proxy just 2 seconds ago? Well, we need to actually import that module. So the way we do that is just with import messages from and then the path. Now with the AppKit resolver, we need to use AppKit, and that will give us the correct path. Then lastly, we need to set our messages to equal a new messages. See, we imported it here. Now we're creating a new messages array, and then we're going to set the ref on messages to be equal to our reference point. So when you do a new Firebase and then give it the URL, it creates a new reference object thingy, but you need to give it the right thing. So in our case, it's Mr. Chat, as you can see right here, mrchat.firebaseio.com, and then our reference needs to be at messages. So this returns messages, and then it will return the messages model so that our controller can do some cool stuff with it. Cool. So now we got this going. The last thing we really need to do is make our templates and controllers work. So if you go to the index HBS file, you'll see that I've actually just commented out all the stuff that you need to load in. So right here, I've commented out right here and right here. So let's start with the first one. Right here, this is going to iterate through all of the messages that you received from the Firebase server. So when your model passes, or sorry, when your route passes the model into the controller, it's going to have access to this each, and it should have a property called username and messages, and it's just going to iterate through all those. So we can test this out and make sure this is working right here, and well, lo and behold, it's working. It actually it grabs the data from the server and displays it there. Kind of cool, right? So just to prove that, let's say we want to add something else here. We can say actually, well, we'll do that later. I don't want to take too much time. All right, and also it's a little weird. Okay, so but you can actually just add it here, and it will pop up over here instantly. But I'll show that in just a second too. The next thing we're going to do is let's go ahead and delete this line. So this is just a placeholder input, and we will uncomment this. We create an input field, and we've tied the value of this input field to the username. So whenever you change this, it'll change the username property, obviously, here. And we're going to do the same thing, except we're going to do it with the messages. So now this template should be working. If you go back to here, you can see that nothing broke. But if you say something, nothing's going to happen. Huh, how come? Well, the reason nothing happens is because we haven't created the event to push up the data to Firebase. So that's really easy. All we have to do is create an action on the index controller. So let's go to the index controller, and I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this as well. And if you go to the index controller here, you can see that we're adding this actions object, which Ember will use to do a few action, to hold on to some actions. So the send message action is what we're looking for. Now, if you go back to the template really quick, you'll notice in this form we've added the action send message. What this is going to do is saying, hey, when this form gets triggered, we're actually going to look for the send message action and do whatever's in there. So that's what this is doing. It says actions send message, and then what we're going to do here is pretty simple as well. We're going to get the model, and in our case, our model is that array proxy that we created, because this controller's model is that array proxy because we sent it in. So we're going to grab that model, and then on that model, we're going to push message, just as we wrote over here. See, push message. Oops. And then we're going to create an object called username, and we're going to grab the username on the regular model. Kind of a little confusing there, I guess. And then we're going to then grab the messages as well and push it up to the server. And then lastly, we're going to clear out of our object model, we're going to clear the message property so that when we type something in and we type a message in, it doesn't remain in the browser. Okay, so let's save this. And if we go back to our application, you can see now that I can say, I can type in my name and say, hey, this actually worked. Ooh. And look at that. This actually works. So you go to your database, and you can see that a new message has been added. And just to illustrate how cool this is, we'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and do something like this, so that you can see what's going on here. Oh, this is a little difficult, but if you can kind of see that the Firebase is not responsive. Okay, so if you see that, you can say this is another message. Woo! And voila, look how fast that gets added. It's incredible. And people can push stuff to the server and it'll pop up back here just as fast. So anyway, that's how you can implement and build a array proxy with Ember and Firebase without any libraries. Now, I highly recommend, though, to do this for a learning exercise on how to use array proxies and how you might be able to push and interact with Firebase, but this probably isn't the ideal way to build an application. I highly recommend checking out a thing called Fireplace. It's a Ember plugin. It's an Ember data plugin or whatever you want to call it. It allows you to use Firebase like Ember data. So it's really cool, actually, and I've heard some really great things, and I'm actually starting to use it for my projects because it allows you just to set your main reference point and just use Ember data. Anyway, it's called Fireplace, and just so Fireplace. There we go. Fireplace here, and they got great documentations on models and attributes and custom keys and all kinds of different things, saving and whatever. So feel free to go here because I think this is an excellent project and I'd highly recommend it. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you guys have any questions, feel free to just message me and I'll be more than willing to help. Thanks.